You do not need to be bathing in the creek behind your house in order to be maximizing your money. Hi friends, welcome back to the Avocado Toast Budget. If you are new here, my name is Lexa, and today we are going to cover all of the money lies that you've been told. With social media and just the internet in general, I feel like I am constantly reading things and being told things that you guys have heard that are just completely not true, and I think can be really harmful in helping people to progress along their personal finance journey and meet their financial goals. So I want to call those out and let you know what the real tea is. So we're going to address all of those in this video. We're going to cover everything from credit scores to debt to saving money, spending money, investing, all of that. But before we get started, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm, helps boost this video to the top. That way more people can find this content. Let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so first off, let's talk about all of the lies that you've been told about credit scores. One of the most common things that I hear from you guys in the comments is that you thought that checking your credit score would hurt your credit score. And this honestly could not be further from the truth. Everyone by federal law is allowed to check their credit report at least once a year, get their whole credit report, get breakdown of everything. And also there are so many ways for you to check your own credit score pretty much constantly that does not hurt your score at all. You want to be up to date on what is going on with your credit score, not only so that you can make goals to increase your credit score, but also just so you can keep an eye on it to make sure there's not anything like fraudulent going on or any charges that you don't recognize. Definitely take advantage of checking your credit report. You're entitled to a full credit report from all three bureaus at least once a year. How I like to do this is I just typically will split it up and check one every 4 months. That way you are at least every 4 months getting an up-to-date credit report, making sure everything is good to go. Although I do know that right now they have actually allowed you to get all three credit reports once a week because of everything that is going on. So definitely check. I highly recommend that you just use annualcreditreport.com. That is the one that is like A-okayed by the government, and you might as well use that one. You know that all of your information is right and good to go and completely free. You should never have to pay for a credit report, and you should never have to worry that checking your credit report or your credit score is going to hurt your score. If you want to know what your FICO score is, Experian, you can just go to Experian.com. You can get your Experian credit report and you can get your FICO score all for free. You should never have to put any like credit card information in order to do that. The next lie that I hear a lot about credit scores is that credit scores don't matter if you never plan on being in debt. I covered this a lot in a few of my videos, especially my Credit Score 101 video and things that I disagree with Dave Ramsey about. I will link both of those up here. Also put them in the description box down below so you can go watch those if you want to. But pretty much to quickly summarize it, there are so many reasons that your credit score can matter, can save you money and make a difference in your life that have literally nothing to do with debt. These things can include car insurance rates, being able to rent an apartment, and also certain clearances for job positions. Jobs are never allowed to get a copy of your credit score, but they can get a copy of your credit report. It does not have all of your information on it, and depending on the career field that you're in, this could cause you to not be able to get a promotion or a certain job. So yes, your credit score definitely matters even if you never plan on being in debt again. It is not the end-all be-all. It does not have anything to do with your worth as a human being, but I do think that it is important to at least know what your credit score is, keep up with it, know what makes up your credit score. That way you can start taking steps toward improving your credit score. And along the same line of thinking, another lie that I hear about credit scores are that you need to pay interest and be in a lot of debt in order for your credit score to increase and for you to have a good credit score. That is absolutely not true. You can build credit and increase your credit by opening up a credit card, paying it off in full every single month, and keeping your utilization low. Again, I talk more about that in my Credit Scores 101 video, but you definitely do not need to be paying any interest on any debt in order for you to have a good credit score. The majority of your credit score is made up by your utilization, so how much of your available credit that you are using, and also your payment history. Are you making your payments on time? With just those two things, neither of which require you to be paying interest on any debt, you can have a really solid credit score. So Dave Ramsey out here telling people that credit score is an I love debt score is just factually incorrect. On the topic of debt, let's go ahead and talk about some of the money lies that you have been told in regards to debt. The first one that I always like to call out and challenge is the idea that you are morally obligated to pay off debt. And whenever I say this, a lot of people will say, oh, well, you're not morally obligated to be debt-free, but you are morally obligated to pay off the debt that you have taken out. And I want to challenge that a little bit and ask why people think that. The majority of bankruptcies that happen in America and the debt that people have are from medical debt, which generally speaking, no one asks to be into and no one asks to take out. So no, I don't think that you are any less of a human being for not being able to pay off your debt, settling on a debt, or ultimately if you have to file for bankruptcy, I don't think that makes you any less of a human being either. If you've been on this channel for any amount of time, you've probably heard me talk about that you are not morally better for being debt-free than you were when you are in debt. And I think that that also applies to how you get out of debt or if you ever get out of debt. Struggling with debt, especially when it is so much that you don't know how you're going to make ends meet, is already awful and stressful enough. Don't add that extra shame and guilt on top of it, thinking that you're a bad person if you can't make your payments, if you have to settle, go bankrupt, or if you just can't pay off your debt. You are not. Anyone who is telling you that has drank the capitalism Kool-Aid and is completely wrong. So in case no one has told you before, you are not any better of a person for being debt-free, and you are not any worse of a person for being in debt. Debt is completely morally neutral. And with that being said, another lie about debt that I hear a lot is that all debt is bad, and taking like the morals and ethics out of it, that's just factually not the case. There are tons of people who are able to leverage debt to their advantage to help them to build wealth. I have touched on this a little bit when I talk about student loans and the fact that I'm just not worried about paying mine off, whether mine were in forbearance or not, which right now they are, so they're at 0%, so I'm definitely not worried about making any payments on those. But even when they come up, I'm not worried about making anything more than the minimum payments because I know that since my student loans are such low interest, my money would be better served putting it into an investment account, letting that money sit and grow and compound interest work for me than if I were to put that money toward paying off my student loans. So I know that there is this narrative, especially in the personal finance community, about being debt-free journey, sprinting toward debt freedom, but I just want you to know that you are allowed to take a step back and evaluate for yourself if that is the best thing. And I think that this really goes well with this next lie that I hear a lot, which is this narrative that you should strive to be debt-free and you should do whatever you need to do to get there as quickly as possible. I am all about finding a balance in your budget and in your personal finance goals and with your money. And I don't think that you need to sprint toward debt freedom, even if being debt-free is one of your goals. You are allowed to have multiple financial goals and balance those out and work toward all of them. You are also allowed to invest and splurge on yourself and things that bring you joy, even if you are on a debt-free journey. Everyone's situation is different. That's why it's called personal finance. It is very personal, and you do not have to feel like you need to put every single extra penny toward debt in order to be headed in the right direction and doing it right. You are allowed to invest when you're in debt. You're allowed to go on vacations or splurge on yourself or go on a date night out to a nice restaurant. If it fits in your budget and it is something that matters to you, that's what's important. Now, moving on from debt onto lies that you have been told about spending money. It's so interesting to me because I feel like spending money is like not talked about in personal finance. Like people will talk about obviously like where their money went, but I don't feel like a lot of people put value on spending money. And I think that valuing spending money on things that bring you joy and value and happiness is a very logical and valid goal to have, especially because I have heard back from so many of you that because of the way that you grew up, especially if you grew up with not a lot of money and a lot of financial insecurity, people tend to kind of hoard money and feel like anytime that they have it, they can't spend it without that shame and guilt because either they still have that mindset in the back of their head that they never know what is going to happen and they don't know if they're going to be able to make it by because that is how they grew up and that is the trauma situation that they lived in. Or that might be a very real situation for you still, that you still are experiencing financial insecurity, and it can be very hard to let go of any money that you do have or to stop yourself from feeling shame and guilt when you do spend money. So one of the things that I hear from you guys a lot and that I see in the personal finance community a lot is this idea that you can throw away money on things, or that you need to maximize what every dollar that you have can do for you. And that's just not the case. And I feel like if most people followed that idea to its logical conclusion, they would see how ridiculous it is. I've heard this so much in my comments when I talk about Starbucks and how you can't just give up Starbucks and be able to afford a house. People will go on these crazy math spirals about how, yes, but that $5 times 365, and then you add compound interest, and in 40 years, if you didn't buy that Starbucks, then you'd have all this money. No, just stop. If you have to start spiraling that much, you've gone way too far, because I feel like you could just keep spiraling. You could say that about literally anything. If we're gonna say that about Starbucks that brings me value, then we could start talking about all of the ways that I need to cut back on money, including water. Why do I not just go beg someone to give me some of their water so that I can bathe in the creek behind my house? And I feel like you could just, if you're going to have that mindset, you would need to follow it to its logical conclusion. And its logical conclusion is that you could cut back on literally anything in your life in order to quote unquote maximize your dollar. And that's not what life is about. You do not need to be bathing in the creek behind your house in order to be maximizing your money. And I also want to challenge people about their idea of what maximizing their dollar looks like, because it does not have to mean that you are making sure that that $1 makes you as much money as possible. There are things that your money can buy you that have nothing to do with making you more money. They can buy you time, freedom, peace of mind, joy, happiness, so much shit that has nothing to do with just increasing the value of your dollar. And all of those things are just as valid, if not more valid, than making your money grow as much as it possibly can and cutting back so that you can save as much as you possibly can. Again, I feel like all of these tips just kind of come back around to the idea that there is balance to be found, and what balance looks like for you is going to be different than what it looks like for me and the next person and the next person. Another thing that I do want to touch on about spending money that is a common lie that I hear is that you have to spend money to make money. I hear about this in some money mindset things, and I feel like I like the idea of money mindset. I literally just made a video on it, and I do think that it can be really important, but I also have seen some really toxic things come out of changing your money mindset. And one of those things is the idea that you need to have this abundance mindset. And again, abundance mindset can be good, but sometimes people take it a step further and talk about how you need to spend money as if you have the money. You need to spend money to make more money, and that is absolutely not true. Do not listen to that. I am currently transitioning to a career of doing the ATB full time, and I spent and still spend very little money on it. The ATB is probably one of the best financial decisions I have ever and will ever make, and I spent $100 on it at first, and I have probably invested in total less than a couple of grand. Now obviously, as if we're talking about things like business and those things, as businesses grow, obviously they need to spend more money, but you do not need to spend money as if you don't have it in order for you to make money. That is absolutely not the case, and I hate when people say that because it can put others in a really bad financial situation. Nothing is guaranteed in life. It is not worth the risk. Now, let's talk about some investing lies that you've been told. The first one is that investing is only for the rich, and this could not be further from the truth. Really, one of the only ways to build sustainable and long-term wealth, at least in the US with the system that we have right now, is through investing. And you don't need to be rich to start off with investing. I had this idea in my mind for the longest time. I feel like I constantly had this picture of the Wolf of Wall Street in my mind when it came to investing, and that's not at all what investing has to be. You do not need a lot of money to start off with in order to start investing, and you do not need to be rich to invest your money. Personally, I love to use M1 Finance. That is the investment platform that I use. Right now, if you deposit $100 on the platform, you'll get an extra $30 to invest. You need $100, I believe, to open up just one of their standard brokerage accounts, the taxable ones. If you want to open up a tax advantaged account like an IRA, which is what I have through M1 Finance, you do need $500. Don't worry though if you don't have that. You don't need that money to get started. What I would recommend is just start a savings goal, put that money aside in a high yield savings account until you do have that $500 to open up an account and start investing. You do not need tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to invest and in order for that money to make a difference. The second investing lie that you've been told is that you don't need to worry about retirement until you're older. I definitely have been there with this mindset. Even when I was like really diving into the world of personal finance, I remember for the longest time thinking investing seemed overwhelming. I don't need to worry about that right now. I'm only 23, 24. I'll worry about that as I get older. I'm just gonna focus on budgeting for now. And I am so glad that I took the step into investing that opened up the world of investing for me at the age that I did, because honestly, time is your biggest asset when it comes to investing, and there is no better day than today to start. Sure, you might not retire until you're older, but you're only going to retire when you're older if you start today. Trust me, your future self, when you actually are able to retire, is going to thank you big time for not waiting any longer. Okay, everyone, so that is it for our money lies that you have been told video. I really hope that you enjoyed it and you learned something cool. If you liked it, make sure to give it a big thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm. It really helps boost this video to the top. That way more people can find this content. And I will see you all next time. Bye.